shortly. Now, my next guest is a real inspiration for you, I hope, and really proof that it's not too late and it's worth giving things a go. Her name is Helen Aitchison. She's a local author and the director of Write on the Tyne, and they provide creative writing courses to community groups, one-to-one, writing mentoring as well, and lots of other services. So Helen spent 20 years working in health and mental health in the social care field, including working with frontline victims of domestic abuse and series for victims of exploitation and services for young people. So she's had an incredible career, and it was then that she began a journey of writing. And Write on the Tyne is Helen's way to combine her passions, supporting very hard to reach community groups, but also championing social justice and inclusion alongside a love of writing and teaching. It sounds like the perfect way to live your life, doesn't it? So let's find out how it all started for her.
I guess it started when I was really young, and I have worked in social care for 20 years. So I started off when I was 21, working in a refuge in South Tyneside. And then I went back to university because I wanted a professional qualification.
Yeah.
I'd previously done criminology and sociology, so I wanted that kind of professional qualification. So I did social work and I did a little bit of that. And then I went back into the charity field. And I guess one of my interests was always around domestic abuse.
Yeah.
So I was lucky enough to secure another job in the field. And I was actually the first IDVA in North Tyneside for Marrick many, many years ago.
Oh, explain what that is for people.
So IDVA is an independent domestic violence advisor, or advocate, sometimes they're called, and you get sexual violence advisors as well. And they are an independent support for the most high-risk victims of domestic abuse. So those are a significant risk of harm or death through violence. So when it was first established in North Tyneside, the role was mine, and I was based at the time with the domestic violence officers and the police. So that was a really interesting role, and really kind of about policy and how things change for victims and survivors of domestic abuse.
What was the kind of catalyst for starting to write? Was it all that extraordinary experience that you'd had?
In a way it was, Anna. I've only been writing 3.5 years. And I'm published with a traditional publisher.
And although you look 24, you're not 24.
Thank you. I've only been writing 3.5 years. And I think in particular with the arts and anything creative, there's an expectation, there's a misconception that you have to have always wanted to do something, or you have to have developed your skill over decades. And people have, and that's brilliant. But I'm kind of living proof that it can happen overnight. And I never wanted to be a writer. I never dreamt of being a writer. I wasn't interested. I used to just write emails, lots and lots and lots of emails every day at work, a lot of them ranty. So, I think it's really important for listeners to understand that it's never too late to chase a dream.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of help, and that's part of my business, is to help people get into writing. But with regards to me as an individual, there was a few steps, I guess, that got me into writing. And the major one was that I fell in love with reading again.
Yeah.
And after sort of over 15 years of not reading because life got in the way, and career and families and expectations and commitments, I picked up a book again.
What was that book?
It was actually by a colleague of mine called Ian Fiddis, and it's called We Own You, and it was around his experiences of working with the police, with sex workers and people who were sexually exploited. And Ian then came to work at the organisation I worked for, working more with the victim side of it rather than the kind of punishment side of it, even though obviously the police do a lot of safeguarding and supporting victims. So I read his book, and I was buzzing that he'd published this book, and I read it and I was like, wow, I can still remember reading it over the Christmas holidays, and it kind of planted that seed to read again.
Yeah.
And I began reading 50, 60, 70 books a year. I was devouring books. I was loving the way that books took me to a different place, and it was escapism from the everyday.
Yeah.
And then I went on holiday with my parents and my partner, and I read a book. And I was in the gym on holiday. I was the sado in the gym on the exercise bike when everyone was enjoying the cocktails and sunbathing. And I read this book by one of my favourite authors called Mitch Albom. And it was so poignant, and it really struck a chord. And when I closed that book, Anna, I just thought, this is never going to leave me. This book is going to stay with me forever. And I thought, I want to write something that makes someone feel how I feel right now. So I got back home, And I seen an opportunity with live theatre in Newcastle. It was
Yeah, they're
brilliant.
incredible.
They're on. It was a free opportunity, and it's a yearly opportunity for an introduction to playwriting. So I entered the competition. I wrote a piece about domestic abuse, and I received a place on the course. So I went along. It was on a Saturday in the summer, and everyone introduced themselves, and there were some brilliant people there with loads of experience, and they were saying, "Oh, no, I'm doing English language and English literature, and I'm doing creative writing at university, and I've had plays produced." And I was like, "I write emails.
Yeah.
That's all I do. That's all
Yeah.
I've ever done."
So did you feel imposter?
Absolutely, and I was without a doubt the least experienced in the room. But the people were brilliant and the teachers were brilliant and I learnt loads. And it planted that seed again. I was like, right, well, I'm going to try writing. And I'd never wrote before. So I thought I'm just going to have to experiment with genre and style and see what happens. So I started writing poems and short stories and flash fiction. And I started sending pieces off to opportunities, submission opportunities and
Mm-hmm.
competitions.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to get things published. And I thought, well, I can't be that rubbish. You know, someone thinks they're okay. They're going to go in this anthology book. And a lot of the things I was sending pieces off to were for charities. So it was close to my heart. And the first things I had published were two poems around mental ill health, and it was to go towards Carmen Samaritan. So I was absolutely buzzing, you know, when I got the acceptance.
And she's brilliant. Helen Aitchison, if you just joined us on BBC Radio Newcastle, the Sound of the North East, she's a director of Write on the Tyne. They provide creative writing courses to community groups, one-to-one writing and mentoring, heaps of other services. She's great, and we're going to chat about her new book in about the next 5 minutes or so. It's 11:26. My guest for you right now, though, is a brilliant lady. She's inspirational. Her name is Helen Aitchison, and she is the director of Write on the Tyne. And what they do is they provide creative writing courses to community groups, and they do one-to-one mentoring as well, writing mentoring, lots of services. And she's just published her second book, The Life and Love Attempts of Kitty Cook. And we're going to find out how she got writing the first book, which was released last year, and a little bit more about Kitty.
So I started writing a book in the November of 2019, and it's based on 5 very different characters. It's called The Dinner Club. And the 5 very different characters have come together over a come dine with me style dining group.
Yeah.
And it's about loss and love and friendship and hope and acceptance. So I was writing this book, and one of the characters was based on me grandma. And my grandma died suddenly at the Christmas of that year. So I started to write through me grief, and it became really cathartic and therapeutic. And, you know, I'd look at the little picture of me grandma in my writing room and I would be breaking my heart, but the writing was healing.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that I wanted to get this character out as well as the other characters. Um, so I just kept writing, and my life kind of changed as soon as I thought I want to do something with this book.
Yeah.
And I did, and I was lucky enough to get it published through a traditional publisher.
But when you say that, lucky enough, you have to have a cut through. This has to be a great book, because
Yes,
getting published through a traditional manner as opposed to self-publishing is extremely difficult. So for you to send this book off and to get it accepted, that's a phenomenal achievement, Helen.
thank you, thank you. And you know, it is, and I kind of I do recognise that, but I think, you know, it is. It's 1% of people get traditionally published.
1%. That's, yeah, it's
But we could
tiny.
all be that, and I think this is my whole belief is that we've all got a story to tell, and we've
I
all
was
got a
going to say
voice.
that. Is that's always my question is,
Yes,
has everybody got a story?
absolutely,
Because I think they
absolutely.
have.
I totally do, and this is part of the work I do, Anna, with me community interest company.
And is that right on the
It
time?
is, it
Yeah.
is, it is. So after getting a publishing deal, I had a sabbatical from work, and that's really when I started to think, I don't think I can write and work in the field I was working in, because it was, as much as I loved my job, it was very stressful. I had, you know, a massive portfolio of services, a massive amount of staff, a large, massive budget. And it was unpredictable because of the nature of the work. So having headspace to be able to write was important to me, and I didn't want my weekends and evenings to be absorbed through that. You know, I wanted to have some kind of work-life balance, and
Yeah.
I knew I couldn't really achieve that. So I left me job with a heavy heart after 15 years, but I wanted to do something where I could combine my newfound love of writing with the love that I've always had for working with groups of people.
Who are vulnerable.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, So I set up a community interest company with help from the Business Factory in North Tyneside, and Right on the Time was born. And that was only really last September when I could focus on that full time. But getting me contract for the dinner club, I continue to write. So I've had a second book released with me publisher just last month.
And is that The Life and Love Attempts of Kitty Cook?
It is.
So tell us about Kitty then.
So it is inspired by my own dating disasters. I had over 35 first dates.
Did you?
I did in my search for love.
What was the worst?
Oh, they're in the book. No. Well, they're inspired. The stories are inspired in the book by my experience. I had some very colourful dates, and Kitty Cook is a laugh out loud book because my dating life was a joke.
Yeah.
So yeah, Kitty Cook is around one woman who is in her 30s. It's around her search for love, but it's also around finding acceptance within yourself, in gender stereotypes and roles that society pushes onto her. There's something in that book around that self-acceptance,
Yeah.
and realizing that there is someone for everyone.
Yeah.
So when I was dating myself, I had a friend who's 20 years older than me who was also dating, and we used to share stories and laugh, and we would go out together, and we both found love. So the message in Kitty Cook is really around finding love, and that it's never too late, and there's always someone for everyone.
Just sitting listening to you now and having a conversation with you is so easy to listen to and to talk to. And it's obvious that this is somebody else has picked up on this, because you, of course, have got a new gig as an agony aunt.
I have, yes.
So this is extraordinary.
It's brilliant.
You're a Wonder Woman. So tell us about this. This would Pick Me Up magazine.
It is. So there's 4 resident agony aunts. So we'll all have a week each per month. But it's brilliant because it's very diverse. Again, there's a range of different dilemmas that people write in and want advice for. And all of the agony aunts have different skills. For me, it's a brilliant thing to be able to do. But I think it's really important that people will read someone else's dilemma.
Yeah.
And again, get that comfort from it and think, oh, I've experienced that, or that happened to me. And it's all around that shared experience, really.
We can all sort of say, oh, no, I could never do that. That's not for me. It's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to people listening who think, I have got a story?
Yeah, I think we're kind of expected to say we can't do things. So I think, it's ingrained in with that. If someone says, oh, you could do, oh, no, I can't, I'm useless, I'll never be able to do that. And we'll put ourselves down so much. And I think the only failing is never trying. So through my business, Right on the Tyne, I do a lot of teaching. And the aim of Right on the Tyne is to make writing inclusive.
Yeah.
There's a lot of connection through writing groups.
Yeah.
So one of the groups I taught was at Newcastle Library, City Library, and it was a women's group, and they've now established a monthly writing group.
Amazing. That must make you feel good.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. And, it's really lovely for them because they can then be accountable, they can share, they can, just get together and be with people who get what they're doing and understand and can be a critique partner. But you've got to start somewhere, and you've got to start to kind of have that faith in yourself. And until you have that faith in yourself, other people can carry you.
Yeah.
But you have to connect with those people and give it a go.
Yeah, so do it. If people want to find you, Helen, they want to find more about you, where can they find you?
So I've got 2 websites, www.rightonthetyne.com and www.helenaichesonwrites.com. And within the websites, they've got links to my social media.
Brilliant.
And also links to the books. And that includes the non-fiction that I write with Right on the Tyne as well.
Fantastic. Helen, thank you so much for coming to chat to us.
Thanks very much.
What a brilliant lady. I've just started reading a book, actually, The Life and Love Attempts of Kitty Cook. Absolutely brilliant, phenomenal. Great guest, very inspirational.